Hello, and welcome to the Colts Cover-2 Podcast. I'm Joel Erickson, as always, Nate Atkins. The Colts win today, 25-24. I don't know if it felt like that until the very end of the game. Kind of a weird one to talk about, right, Nate?
Yeah, very weird. I mean, I feel like we were writing both. We file stories right at the buzzer, uh, just sort of quick thoughts and quick reactions as to how the game unfolded in the moment, and we both had to furiously rewrite the way that was going because it felt like a loss, kind of for most of the day. Certainly when they went down in the second half, and I think when Anthony Richardson threw that interception around halfway through the fourth quarter, they weren't really stopping the run. It couldn't really get anything going in the passing game. It just didn't feel like something that was going to come together for them. And one final drive took 19 plays to go 80 yards. They converted 3 fourth down plays and then essentially a fourth down play when they decided to go for 2. So 4 do or die downs where they miss any one of those and they end up losing. They end up finding a way to get all of those and get the 2-point conversion with 12 seconds left. So all of a sudden it's like they like pulled a win from the jaws of defeat here. So it's gonna be a weird one to talk about though because it's a win and it keeps them right in the mix. Their goals are there for them as far as making the playoffs and having a lane to do that, and still pretty messy AFC being 6-7 gets them there. And there's a lot of sort of positive momentum about their quarterback and the fact that they've kind of weathered through some of the rocky storms of injuries and some of the in-house drama and all that kind of stuff. And they're to the bye week now and all that. But there's also a lot of concerns and a lot of reasons why they should have lost a game today to a Patriots team that has a rookie quarterback and 3 wins. And so really kind of a strange mix of all that as far as what you take away from this one. It's gonna be interesting to talk through.
Yeah, I think we can just jump right into hero of the game because I'm going to pick Shane Steichen for going for it on the 2-point conversion. I think that there's probably some element of he didn't feel like his defense could win the game in overtime if they went to overtime that he didn't say. But I think we all know, I think all of us have been around football long enough to know a lot of coaches don't make that decision. A lot of coaches talk about making that decision, going for it, going for 2 in the win. Steichen actually did it. And that's kind of the exact scenario you want to do it in, where there's really not a chance for them to come back and get the field goal. I know they almost kicked the 68-yarder, but it would have taken like a record kick in the history of the NFL to make it. And you're on the road, you haven't played well all game, you have a chance to steal one. That's kind of like the tailor-made situation to do this, to go for 2. And a lot of coaches, frankly, chicken out when they get to this situation. And Steichen didn't do it. He called a good play for him, a play that's kind of a staple for them. He called it his own read. I think it looks just like an inverted veer or power read. So it's probably that, in that they have the back and the quarterback going to the same side and they're pulling a guard. In this case, Quentin Nelson to lead the quarterback through the hole. Either way, he had options on the play. It's not just a fake to Taylor. It could have gone to Taylor. And it makes you choose between, these 2 dynamic runners, which is what we've talked about in Colts world for a long time. I just think, the other thing I kept thinking about was he wasn't just going for 2 for the game. He was kind of going for 2 for the season. Because if they lose this game to the Patriots, I'm sure there's a scenario where they could win out the last 4 and Denver tanks. And because you have the tiebreaker over Denver, you get in. But realistically, I think all of us would have been like, there's no way. Especially with a loss to that Patriots team. So to get the win, to do it the way they did it, Shane Steichen, hero of the game for, like I said, having the stones to go for it.
Yeah, I just like the way he managed those stakes and just sort of the message you end up sending by going down this way, where it's been a weird route to get here, but finally he and the rest of the offense coordinator Jim Bob Cooter and that entire offense, they finally realized that like their identity is that backfield. And they're either going to go down, they're either going to win the game with them and create this momentum of, look, guys, we can make the playoffs if we ride these guys in these kind of this cold home stretch of the season out of the bye week. Or if it didn't work, it would have been like, okay, well, we took our shot here with these guys. And so that's why my hero of the game is going to be that backfield. So it kind of goes hand in hand with Shane leaning on them and them being the ones that made this happen, because that's really all the Colts had on the field today on either side of the ball. Really, I would dare say any of the phases, because without Ashton Doolin, I don't even know that, and without Josh Downs, I don't think special teams are really any kind of difference-making group either. So defense, we'll get into them. They really were trying to just survive today, and then the passing game until that final drive was really brutal, and their best plays were pretty much all pass interference plays, which were nice to have, but very up and down game in the passing game. But those two running back, or that backfield of Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson, it was 34 combined carries for those two, which is a lot for a regulation game compared to 24 pass attempts. But those 34 attempts, Taylor went 25 for 96, and Anthony Richardson went 9 carries for 48 yards and a touchdown. And it was money on that final drive, because Anthony Richardson, he converted one of those fourth down plays, just kind of a QB power to the left side, where he kind of picked it up easily. He had another fourth down play he saved with his legs. When the Patriots sent like a safety blitz off the right side with nobody to pick him up, he extends the play, throws back to Mo Alley Cox. Of course, Anthony Richardson had that nice throw at Alec Pierce to tie or give them a chance to tie or go for the win. Then they go for the win. And really the tandem of them at the goal line on that inverted veer type of look, where the Patriots really had a nice defense set up. They kind of, they ran so many plays in that set of the field there just to get it into that spot where I think they probably knew exactly what the Colts were going to do, which is it made for a great drama. Either it's going to work or it's not. And it did, because Jonathan Taylor was able to pull one defender, out of the box as the free block on the inverted veer, and then you make the defense tackle Anthony Richardson one-on-one and try and win that way, and he was able to muscle it through for the game-winning score. So this is the place we wanted to see this offense get into, where they're leaning into that backfield, they're trusting them, they're using them on like the gotta have it downs, and they're manipulating the choices that defenses are trying to make to take that away. Today it's the only thing they really had, and so we'll see if that's good enough in Denver, or if they were to make the playoffs. Obviously it's a different animal against a good team and not the Patriots, but they had to win this game. They had to go into New England and win this game, and not a lot for them showed up in terms of players and performances on the field. That backfield carried them, and right now they're going to go to the bye week. They're going to come out of it with those two healthy. That's the engine that they're going to try to ride to the postseason, and took a little longer to get here, but now that they're here, they've got these two and they've got a shot, and that's, I think, all you could realistically ask for with the way the season's gone.
Yeah, Steichen really, our heroes of the game kind of worked hand in hand, because Steichen really rode those guys, especially in the running game. They ran the ball 34 times. They only threw it 24 times. They stuck to what they've done with Richardson, where they're a heavy quarterback design run with him. And it worked really well early. I think we can really get into the villain of the game now, but
we can even throw in there real quick. I forgot about this. They also connected on a passing touchdown. So, I mean, they really provided all the scoring for this team. You had Anthony Richardson ran for a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor caught a 7-yard touchdown with pretty good throw from Richardson, and just amazing control on the sideline from Taylor to get in the end zone. And then they had the 2-point conversion. So really, Alec Pierce was the one other guy to get in on the scoring when he had that 3-yard catch from Richardson. But they really did carry it today.
Yeah, and they probably didn't get as many chances as they would. We've kind of talked about this pendulum going back and forth on who's most at fault for time of possession between the offense and the defense. It was the defense for a while at the beginning of the year, and then it was the offense for a while not being able to put drives together. And today, again, it felt like it was the defense. The defense just had such a terrible day. So I think villain of the game is Gus Bradley. I want to give it to a more specific position group, but they were so bad all around that the best thing to do is just to give it to the top guy in charge of the defense, because this is a terrible performance against a pretty bad offense. The Patriots came in like 31st in yards per play, 32nd in yards. They had 422 yards, average 6.5 yards per play, 6.5 yards per carry. And really the Colts only had one sack because they couldn't get out of. They got torched by tight ends again. 11 catches by Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper for, it looks like, 117 yards and a touchdown. They couldn't, outside of a sack by DeForest Buckner to force a field goal on the first drive, all they really did was just kill the middle of the field and the short areas of the field and get the ball out of Drake May's hands fast so he didn't have to deal with it. They technically had 4 sacks, but that's the most misleading sack stat I've ever seen. We'll call this a bonus number of the day, because really they had 1 sack. It was Buckner's. Everything else was like a scrambling Drake May at the line of scrimmage ruled a sack because he got 0 yards. They weren't really they weren't real sacks. And the Patriots cost themselves at least 3 points when Joey Slye duck hooked a field goal at the end of the first half. And then I think you can probably give Zaire Franklin some credit for breaking up the ball that Julian Blackmon picked off. You have to give Blackmon some credit for that. But that's another scoring opportunity that the Patriots kind of coughed up themselves. So just Gus Bradley, the entire defense, but Gus Bradley for not coming up with a better way to make life difficult on May. When he called blitzes, they almost always didn't work today. And it was kind of glaring to me that they kept trying the blitzes when it was clear that the Patriots had a good plan for them.
Yeah, I think Gus Bradley is a good way to kind of put that all in one spot. Just really an unacceptable level of performance from them, kind of start to finish. I guess the finish would be the one thing they did. They did get off the field at that right after Anthony Richardson threw that pick, 3 and out. So they finally did rise up at the end, but really everyone, I think, has to wear this. Just to go in a little different direction, I guess I'm going to go with the defensive line for villain of the game, just because I thought this was such a clear mismatch for them to come in here and really hammer this Patriots offensive line. I mean, we saw that coming in, and then just talking to like Patriots writers before the game, they thought that was going to be a big mismatch as well, that the Patriots have just not protected Drake May at all so far. He's just kind of out there with no support. Colts, it felt like, had everything they needed to dominate that matchup. Tyquan Lewis, is back. He's back out there playing. They have, DeForest Buckner and Kwity Paye and Laiatu Latu and Dio Dengbo, and all these guys combined for, like you said, 1 real sack. And I guess we'll use this as a bonus number of the day. 2 quarterback hits at the entire defensive line. It was DeForest Buckner's sack, and Taven Bryan had one that I don't even really remember. So they weren't hitting Drake May. They weren't affecting anything. There's a guy that attempted 30 passes and then had 4 others ruled sacks, where only 1 was a real sack. And then out of his 5 carries, probably 3 or 4 of those were, pass plays turned into runs. So that's close to 40 dropbacks for a rookie quarterback, and you hit him 2 times. I just was shocked at the way that this defensive line played today. When they're the strength of the defense. They're usually the one thing that you can bank on, at least in the pass rush, where they have had some bad moments in run defense before, but they've been able to get after it when they have opportunities, when a team actually drops back, and just couldn't do it at all today. And I think the run defense falls in them too, where the Patriots ran for 200 yards today and just a lot of cutback lanes. Edges were not very secure. Even some of those guys had chances at tackles. I even saw DeForest Buckner miss a couple tackles. I don't know that anybody really rose above today. So they really survived another, what I think is probably their worst performance of the season.
Yeah, I agree with that. The defensive line, just not a lot against a bad Patriots offensive line. I thought Buckner was going to do a lot more after the first drive, and it just never really happened. Unsung hero of the game, I'm going to go with Mark Lewinsky.
Still alive.
Signed off of the Zionsville streets. I'm not even making that up. That's where he lives. He lives in Zionsville. He wasn't doing anything. They signed him last week to the practice squad. I think everyone pretty much knew like this is probably to either to start for take over for Dalton Tucker at some point. He still did it in basically, 1 week. And I got to be honest, I was surprised. I was surprised how well he played, how much more yards before contact Jonathan Taylor had today. And they ran behind Mark Lewinsky a lot.
Yeah.
They ran right behind him a lot, including on the game-winning 2-point conversion. Just impressive for a guy who wasn't doing anything. He wasn't doing anything as far as football goes the whole week. And so, or for the whole season, I mean, and just to come off and give you a good starting game at right guard, and kind of help get this running game back off the mat. Just a huge deal for this Colts team.
Yeah, Glowinski was a great story. I was talking to him after the game about what it was like to just think that like he's waiting around for an opportunity, didn't know if it would come again. He was spending his Sundays in Zionsville watching Colts games. And then that's the team that calls him back. They put him right there at right guard. All of a sudden, he's starting next to Danny Pinter in a line with Quentin Nelson, blocking for Jonathan Taylor, trying to get this team into the playoffs. And it's like kind of a cool full circle moment where the last time he was here doing that, Jonathan Taylor won the rushing title in 2021, but they didn't finish the deal and get it to the playoffs. And that group kind of cratered. And so this is kind of a chance to rewrite that in a way. You can't undo what happened back then, but this could be the group that if they can get it together after such a messy past month or so, maybe 2 months with the injuries of the offensive line, they can help that tandem in the backfield power this team to the playoffs. And it would just be kind of a cool way for a 32-year-old like Glowinski who just wanted to keep going. He was training like 3 to 3.5 hours a day as a free agent to give himself that chance. So he's definitely the best choice for unsung hero. Just to go a slightly different direction, I'll just stick right with that group and go Bernhard Raimann. Thought him coming back at left tackle was very noticeable. Both phases. I mean, before this game, the past couple, the Colts have not been able to get Jonathan Taylor to the edge really at all. They had one big run against the Bills, but that's so many negative plays when they would run to the edge. Matt Gonzalez was doing his best trying to train at left tackle and right tackle, but he's better on the right side. We were seeing today. And then Bernhard Raimann, I thought, just really settled a lot of things. You saw Quentin Nelson get back to playing dialed in and downhill and nasty. I thought they ran really well at that left side when they needed to go there as well. That's one of those fourth down plays. Like I mentioned, was a power from Anthony Richardson off that side where Raimann really opened that up. And just I think these two guys are the way to go because it kind of gets it. The offensive line in general is what really, in addition to that backfield and Shane Steichen believing in it, that offensive line is what really saved the day because just 2 quarterback hits for the Patriots and 0 sacks. And based on the way that pressure has come on this offense, whether it's been Joe Flacco or Anthony Richardson over the past 6 weeks or so, that is a huge difference. And even I know the Patriots are not a good defense, but every defense was getting hits on the quarterback up until this week. So I think Bernhard Raimann coming back really settled this down. Fun fact, of the 2 quarterback hits for the Patriots, one of them came from former Colt Yannick Ngakoue. So that was interesting to notice that he was out there today. He's kind of a late call up for them. But yeah, it's just offensive line. It's been a rough go for them for a while. Today was the kind of rebound performance they really needed at the right time.
Yeah, just a huge deal from the offensive line today. Quentin Nelson with a shout out for a huge block pulling lineman on Christian Barmore after Barmore beat Matt Gonzalez with a swim move on the 2-point conversion. If Nelson, I mean, you bring Nelson over there for some in case someone gets out there, but really Gonzalez is supposed to hit the block and then Nelson's supposed to lead Richardson through the hole. Nelson comes across, realizes Barmore's free, and just leveled him, just flipped him over Gonzalez on the ground, and really gave Richardson the chance to get in. So yeah, the offensive line, just a really big game from them when they had to have it. Unsung villain. Unsung villain of the game. You got anybody right off the top of your head? I got to think about this one a little bit.
I do have one off the top of my head. I'm going to go with. I was torn between a couple of these guys, but I think I am going to go with Kylan Granson in this one. 3 targets for Granson and didn't come down with any of them. Granted, one of those Anthony Richardson really sailed over his head, but Kylan Granson has not really proven that he's frankly going to come down with the ball. He's just really struggling at the moment. And just that play at the end of the game, the final drive, that was a 3rd down. Well, actually, I forget what Eddie Mitchell was the other one I was torn on with this. Is those 2 drops in the final drive. I guess I'll kind of pair them together just to make it fair. Those 2 drops in the final drive, very similar concepts. Fade route down the field, get a step on the defender. You can catch it and either run in the end zone or maybe you get tackled within the 5. But it's like they needed all day for one player to make an explosive play for this team. That was going to be the difference today. Luckily, they pulled it out with all those 4th down conversions, but both of those guys had a chance to make that play, both of them right in their hands. A.D. Mitchell, the defender, did poke the ball out once he was trying to catch it, but that's where you have to be able to corral that ball and pull it through when you've got to step on the defender. And then Kylan Granson didn't even have to face that. So just not a lot of Anthony Richardson didn't have the best, most consistent day passing by any means, but also needed some guys to make a play. And I just think A.D. Mitchell, this was his moment. This was his moment to kind of step in for, without Josh Downs out there, Michael Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce are both banged up at the moment. Ashton Dula wasn't out there. This was kind of his opportunity to do that as the healthy wide receiver. And then Kylan Granson, you are the veteran pass catcher of the tight end room that hasn't been doing it. And then today they leaned on those guys. I believe they had something like 9 targets as a tight end room. So they actually
a lot of targets.
You could, and then maybe that's another way to go as a tight end room, but those guys have, they haven't got a ton of opportunities, and that could be maybe one way you could say, well, maybe we don't know entirely if these guys could do more because they haven't been a big focus. Today they were focused, and just don't think they came through the way they could have.
I think the biggest thing with Granson is he's never been a star, but he was at least reliable in the past.
Yeah.
He had 30 catches each of the last 2 seasons. This year, it feels like every time he's targeted, almost something weird is happening. And,
True.
And I don't mean like Drew Ogletree getting called for a hold. I feel like it's everything. And a lot of it is him dropping a ball or not running the right route or not getting his head around or whatever. I don't know what happened. He went from being at the very least a serviceable receiving tight end to being just very unproductive and disturbingly so. So I think that's a good unsung villain. I'm going to go with the linebackers again. Zaire Franklin's stat line looks really good. 12 tackles, sack and a half, fumble forced. But the Patriots ran for 200 yards. They also attacked the short area in the middle of the field. Like I always say, it's hard to know what the coverage responsibilities are on everything, but it feels to me like opposing teams attack where the linebackers are. I feel like we're far enough into the season now to say that. And EJ Speed, just some very I think he's getting fined for a couple times. I think he might get fined twice for hits to the head, including one really dumb one where he didn't even wrap up when he hit the guy in the head, and he's lucky that the guy fell down. Because if he kept his feet, it would have been 6 more yards. I mean, don't hit anybody in the head, but if you're going to hit somebody in the head, wrap up so they fall down. It feels like those linebackers are a part of every game plan now for the opponents, in that we're going to attack where those linebackers are in the passing game, and that's just how we're going to do it. And it just feels like they're not doing enough to alter things. And a game where the Patriots have 422 yards, their tight ends have 11 catches. The touchdown to Hooper came against Franklin in coverage. It's just not a good game for the linebackers.
Yeah, those 2 tight ends for the Patriots had 11 catches for 117 yards and a touchdown. Both averaged over 10 yards a catch. They torched them. And that's the thing, is the linebackers are they're getting in their own way right now. It's one thing to not be super sound in coverage, but they're missing tackles when they give up the catch too. So it's like turning these, the defensive structure at times has made it to where they're willing to give up a little bit of these dink and dunk type passes, but they got to tackle underneath, and they're not doing that. And that extends to the run game too. I mean, when a team runs for 200 yards and 6.5 yards a carry, the linebackers are going to be a big part of the blame. So I think that one's worthy, and it's just gone on enough this year where they've had enough struggles in run defense and covering tight ends that they're going to be part of the game plan. The one saving grace is that Zaire Franklin did have a couple plays kind of late in that game to just stop the bleeding a little bit on defense, helping force that pick to Julian Blackman, and then I thought he had some good stops at the end when they were able to get off the field, just down the stretch at the very, very end of the game. But yeah, they're worthy of that for sure. You're muted.
Well, that's embarrassing. We're at the number of the day portion. We've already given a couple of bonus numbers of the day. Nate, what's your number of the day for the game?
My number of the day, I'm going to go with I'm going to go with 55.7, which was Anthony Richardson's quarterback rating, just because it doesn't align with ultimately the story of this game and really the feel that you would have coming out of it with him. Like I said, this is sort of a window to talk about the up and down nature of Anthony Richardson, where it wasn't a great day passing by any means, but it wasn't as bad as 55.7 would indicate. That's weighed pretty heavily by 2 interceptions and obviously only 109 yards. But, one of those picks I definitely would put on him. I think he just decided to throw too late against man coverage on a crosser to Alec Pierce, and Christian Gonzalez made a nice play, but it's also like there wasn't a lot to be gained there. The other one was a nice tip type play into good zone coverage. But, there's just he doesn't get credit in these stat lines for some of the pass interferences they were able to force. That was a big way they got that final drive going. And then, like we said, just a couple of drops that either one of those plays, A.D. Mitchell or Colin Grayson, would have changed these numbers a good amount. So, but it's just one of those. It's like it's hard to look at surface numbers only with Anthony Richardson. They're going to lack sometimes, even when he's contributing in a nice way. Like today, I thought was a good example of how, like, with a player like this, he's not going to be consistent. He's not going to be highly efficient and accurate, but he has this ability that he's shown 2 times in 3 weeks to sort of, and I would actually say 3 straight weeks, the way he actually played last week against the Lions, to, like, when he's on for a couple of drives in the right moments can make up for a lot of the inefficient numbers and the stuff that didn't go right earlier in the game. And you see a lot of different skills of his, I think, don't play into these numbers, such as, forcing those penalties is one of those. Today wasn't as much of this, but last week we talked about like how he'll throw the ball away to avoid a sack. That can affect the numbers, but sack avoidance was a big part of it. He took 0 sacks today, and like I said, the O-line played really, really well, but he had a chance to. He worked out of some of those pressures just by scrambling around a little bit. So, just interesting that, like, the guy who leads the game-winning drive has a 55.7 quarterback rating, but I don't think anyone comes out of this, negative on Anthony's performance so much as understanding like it's an up and down type of thing for him playing on the road. I think that was an ad on the IndyStar website, so sorry about that.
So check out the IndyStar.
Check out the IndyStar.
Anyway, my number of the day is 19. 19 plays on the last drive. I know it's kind of a simple one, but it's just a lot of plays. They had to, like you said, they had to convert a bunch of 4th downs to do it. JJ Stankovitz pointed this out. Per stat head, the Colts' 19-play game-winning drive is the longest since at least 2001. The previous long was 18 plays. There hasn't been an 18-play game-winning drive ending with a touchdown since 2009. So, like, it's one thing to get the ball and say, okay, we got 5 minutes, let's go score and win the game. It's another thing to do it. And the 19 plays there, it's such a rare number that when they said it at the end of the scoring drive, I was surprised. And it's really funny because the 2-point conversion doesn't count.
Yeah. That's crazy. Like, they went 80 yards, which is a crazy long drive. But if you count that, essentially, I guess that's 82 yards if we count the 2-point conversion. But it's basically 4 yards of play. So, I mean, it's like, it's about 3 yards in a cloud of dust. This was 4 yards in a cloud of dust all game long, or all drive long, to get basically what was the equivalent of 4 fourth-down conversions when you include that 2-point conversion. So just a crazy, crazy, chaotic drive.
Maybe that fixes the Colts' time of possession problem. Just go for it on fourth down a lot.
That's right. You need one 19-play drive a game, and it'll just even all the numbers out. So
yeah, it'll help a little bit.
Yeah, easy solutions.
That brings us to the fun stuff, the game day observation, the 3 football things. Game day observation. My game day observation, this was a cold weather game. I don't know how much they talked about this on the broadcast, but it was colder than it seemed. I was in the shade for my TV spot that I do with Fox 59, CBS 4, First and Joel. And both me and Dave Griffiths, who does a great job over there, were shivering quite a bit. I think it was supposed to be 36, but it definitely felt colder than that. Very windy. And really, after having some years where there's no cold weather games because all the road trips are either to the south or, like, I know we went to New York in 2022 and it was 60 degrees on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. So we've had some weird stuff. So to have an actual cold weather game where it's down around freezing was a little bit different.
Yeah, it was chilly out there. I could go into a million things about my travel experience to get here. I was supposed to get here at 8:30 on Saturday and landed at 3 a.m. So this was a bit
Nate
of a
Nate almost did not cover this game.
Almost didn't get there. I think one more delay on either connecting flight would have thrown this into disarray, but I made it. And so I'm actually going to make my observation about the actual game of being there, since I was able to make it there. And to me, this was an interesting jersey type game in the fact that, like, almost none of the jerseys you see are current. Like, it's a very interesting mix of just where this Patriots franchise is, where there's so many great players they could choose from to get jerseys of just in my lifetime alone, the past 20 years alone. Obviously, Tom Brady is by far the most prevalent of those, but whether it's Gronkowski or name any one of the defensive players, even the Randy Moss cameo, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, but you go to, like, the current version of the Patriots. We were talking about this earlier, like, who would you get a jersey of? It would have to be Drake May. I do want to shout out Drake May. I was actually pretty impressed with how he played, how he scrambled around, kind of made plays, kept them in it, gave him a chance, played with poise. But it's like just a very interesting spot for the Patriots franchise to be in, that these fans who are my age or younger have never really been in with them, where it's all sort of like they cling to what they were. There's hope in Drake May of what they can, what he could someday be, and yet so far off the roster around him to give them all that feeling that, like, it's coming together. And I think that's why you saw that reflected in sort of a scattered crowd today. So just it's a proud franchise, proud fan base that's going through something a lot of them haven't gone through before.
Yeah, it was very noticeable how few fans were there.
Yeah.
Like, you and I left the hotel a lot earlier than we normally would for a 30-minute drive, because normally when you come here, the traffic is really bad, and there was no traffic. It was easy to get into the stadium. I know I heard one Patriots writer say that was the easiest drive he's ever had. Getting into the stadium was that one. And one other game day observation, those red uniforms for the Patriots are gorgeous.
Yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous. And Pat Patriot is a great logo. I would almost put the Patriots in there with the Broncos as a team that should just go back to that. 80s look.
So you like the Patriot better than the raccoon in Nashville?
Maybe not the actual mascot, but the old logo where he's snapping the football.
Oh, the logo.
Absolutely incredible. And it was midfield today. It was that big pet Patriot snapping the football logo.
Yeah.
That brings us to 3 football things that gave me joy, 3 football things that left Nate terribly vexed. We get a bonus football thing that gave you joy because I've got Sports Center on in the background here, and I didn't know this play happened. Have you seen the Josh Allen lateral play?
No.
He threw a quick out to a receiver, a Bills receiver, and I apologize, I don't know which receiver it was. But he caught like a quick hitch. They were playing in the snow today, and immediately gets hit from behind but not taken down. Oh, it was Amari Cooper. It looks like it was Amari Cooper. And he lateraled it to Josh Allen for a touchdown in the snow. They ran an improvisational hook and ladder to the quarterback. I don't know. That'd be like a top 5 thing. That'd be a top 5 football thing that gave me joy if it ever happened to the Colts.
Yeah, I also said this earlier, but anything Josh Allen does gets 25% cooler when it's in the snow. So you mix
anything any football player does. I would say anything any football player does.
Definitely. But like Josh Allen was like made to be that quarterback in the snow. Just felt like he's put on earth to do that thing.
Now getting to the real football things that gave me joy. Number 1 football thing that gave me joy. Bobbled random interceptions where the ball doesn't go down. They're just fun. Like, should the defense get a lot of credit for that interception? Probably not. But any replay where surely that ball had to hit the ground. Did it hit the ground? No, it bounced all over their bodies and it bounced right into the safety. Football thing that gave me joy. Automatic. Love it.
Yeah. those there were a couple of those. Like each team got one of those tipped interceptions, although the one Julian Blackmon had was freaking crazy. It's just one of those crazy plays with the ball. It's like, how'd that ball not touch the ground? And you watch it very clearly, it didn't. So that was cool. I'm going to double up on one we've already brought this, or you already brought this one up, but just EJ Speed's chicken wing tackle. That vexed me greatly because he hit the defender, or he hit a ball carrier in the head twice, which is not good. And like you said, we'll probably get him fined. But the first one just seemed like what a lot of defense players do, like they'll lay the wood, and then you probably shouldn't have come in that hard. The chicken wing tackle is like, I don't know why that would be your go-to. It was like he's trying to like just toss him down with an elbow. It would have been impressive if he could pull it off. It didn't actually work, but that was an interesting tackling technique in that play.
Yeah, I hate it when guys don't wrap up. That might be the oldest, like that might be the most old head I get. I hate when guys don't wrap up. Because to me, it's like the whole point is to get them on the ground no matter what. Always wrap up, always grab cloth. Yeah. Number 2 football thing that gave me joy, Quentin Nelson destroying Christian Barmore on the pulling play. I think I've said before, I love pulling linemen. I love it even more when a pulling lineman gets to blow up a defensive lineman. Like it's fun when they get anybody. It's really fun when they get a corner. But when you get to blow up a guy who is supposed to be, you're picking on somebody your own size and you blow them up anyway. Now, he may have had a little help from Matt Gonzalez being on the ground. Oh well. Still love it. Still love it.
Yeah, that was a great play. Second football thing that left me terribly vexed. We'll go to the other linebacker. Zaire Franklin on one play basically wiped out on the snow and tried to tackle somebody at the shoestrings. It's just one of those, not the snow, I shouldn't say, on the grass. It wasn't actually snowy out there, but it was cold, and it was like just a very quick slip on the grass and just wanted to reach for his shoelaces, which like we talk about, sometimes you have to, whatever you can do to trip a guy up, and that has to happen. But usually that's based on like your leverage or positioning, and not the way that play went down. Was Zaire Franklin's had a lot of great plays over the years, but that one was not the most graceful. But he survived. They were able to get a run stop on that play, actually.
If it had been a snow game, I would have forgiven any cold weather. If it had been a snow game like Buffalo got, I'd forgive any cold weather. Number 3 football thing that gave me joy. I'm gonna go with Mo Cox not being the intended receiver on the play on the 4th down. He's supposed to run a pick, and he said he didn't know that Richardson was under pressure until he looked back, and then it was like, oh wait, I've got to go be a receiver. I also secretly, that also gave me joy because he's probably not trying to, but Mo Cox admitted that on some plays, the receiver's not running around at all. They're just picking the guy. But yeah, a play where basically the way Mo described it, he realized where Richardson was scrambling and realized, oh no, I'm the only person who can catch a pass on this side of the field, essentially, and decided to go find some space. So I love that. I love when the improvisational stuff ends up landing on somebody who's not really supposed to be a part of the play at all.
Yeah, that was actually my favorite play of the entire game. Just his element of that, and what Anthony Richardson did to extend the play to get it to that moment. I just thought that was them kind of working through things. And then passing game that doesn't always, that's young and doesn't always find ways to do that, but they did on that play, and they did, and they had to today. I'm going to switch it up, and for my third thing, I'm actually going to give something that gave me joy instead of a vexing, and it's Anthony Richardson's 360 spin, 360 spike,
yeah.
I would say. He did that on his rushing touchdown. It's the celebration he brought the NFL last year that people kind of fell in love with because it's just so graceful and athletic. This burst of energy that also showcases his crazy ability to hop and so quickly spin in the air and all in one motion, that fire that ball into the turf with that arm strength. And he went away from it for a long time. I mean, part of it's he went 10 straight games without a rushing touchdown, where he also had time missed due to the injury. So like some of it was just a natural lag, but he hadn't used it yet in his other 3 rushing touchdowns. And I asked him after the game about deciding to bring that back. And apparently he's talked about it at points this season. Teammates and family members have asked him, like, please bring that back. And, fun tidbit to this is, at one point a few weeks ago, I was ran into Anthony Richardson's mom at one of his events, and she was talking about how much she loves that 360 spike. So like his mom was waiting to see that again. And here's this kid playing in his first cold weather NFL game that's also in the stadium of one of his favorite quarterbacks he followed growing up in Tom Brady. And so to be able to run, into the end zone on a rush play, and just so the how quickly he went into that spike too was almost like he was ready for that moment in that celebration. One of 2 great celebrations from him today. But that one was sort of a good throwback to kind of the way that he introduced himself to the NFL in the first place.
Yeah, fun fact, not the coldest game he's ever played in. I actually did ask.
Yeah.
He played a game against Vandy when it was 20 degrees in Nashville. So I actually did ask that this week. Kind of a fun tidbit to throw out there. He's been in cold weather at least once for a kid who grew up in Florida, went to Florida, and is just now getting his taste of. I mean, listen, Indianapolis is kind of cold. It's not like one of the coldest places in the NFL, but to a kid from Florida, it's very cold. So getting a taste of it, especially since they play in a dome. That does it for the fun stuff. We're going to move into too much credit, too little credit. I almost did too much blame, and I realized they won. So let's start with too much credit. Nate, who is going to get too much credit? Who is getting too much credit for this win?
The Colts. Honestly, I don't have an easier way to pare this down, but it's the fact that like this game, I mean, they obviously win the game, so that's all that ultimately matters. But it's kind of crazy that they did win this game when they got outgained in yardage, 422 to 253. Yards per play for the Patriots was 6.5, for the Colts 4.4. It's really hard to go through this box score and find kind of where they didn't have, like, it wasn't special teams that made up the difference. It was those 3 4th down plays, and the fact that The Patriots, they were 2 of 6 in the red zone. So I think that was it too. Like the Patriots, they gashed this team, and I know it's a bend but don't break defense for the Colts. Today did not have that feel of like they're playing well. They're just giving up a few yards here and there. They were mostly not playing well. They made some plays in the red zone, but also I think the Patriots just showed us in moments why they're 3-10, like whiffing a chip shot field goal. Who knows? Maybe that makes it a 10-point game. They're not able to come back. There's some penalties that weren't really necessary, at least. It really moved them behind the sticks in a tight part of the field. So just some of the red zone stuff really saved them. And then really the Colts had one great drive, and that's all they ended up needing for this game. But they really had to survive today, and they had to just get one kind of man up drive from each side of the ball. But ultimately, this was not like the best thing to me is they survived and they're in the playoff mix. But I don't know that much of the team did a lot to actually kind of go out and take this one. It was a little bit more of kind of two teams that weren't playing great, and one of them had to win, and the Colts came through in the end.
I think that's my favorite too much credit of all time. I don't think we can top that. Since we can't top that with something serious, I'm just going to say Joey Sly for almost making a 68-yarder. If he hadn't duck hooked the 25-yarder, it wouldn't have mattered. So
that's true.
Patriots kicker Joey Sly, just because Nate's thing is so good. Too little credit for me. Alec Pierce is going to get too little credit.
It's a good one.
He had to make that catch. Also, he's playing through a foot injury that Nate and I saw him in the locker room last week, and it was pretty jarring how badly he was moving.
Oh yeah.
I was concerned all week about whether or not he was going to play. Now, obviously, we don't get to see him practice, but he didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday. And he admitted himself that on Monday last week, he thought, there's no way. I don't know if this is going to work. But he stayed in it, ended up making it, and then obviously comes up with the biggest catch. Also, I think one of the other things about that catch is he told us afterwards that Kyle Duggar got his hand on the ball and was trying to rip it out, and Pierce just held on to it. And obviously, I think that's what a receiver is supposed to do, but also it's what other Colts receivers didn't do at all the whole game.
Yeah.
Was hang on to a ball while somebody else was touching it. And Pierce did it in the biggest moment, comes through with the touchdown. Anthony Richardson's 2-point conversion is the game winner, but I think Pierce deserves just as much credit for coming up with the ball they had to have on the touchdown.
Props Alec Pierce for being a cold weather player. I mean, he played suburban Chicago high school football, played at Cincinnati. He's kind of that, and just everything about his game it's a little more, it's pretty blue collar. It's like a lot of the kind of side hustle stuff and the stuff that goes unnoticed, the physical plays. So he just seems he was ready for this moment and did some good stuff relative to a day where just not a lot of people did. And yeah, he only had 16 yards, but that we're having a completely different conversation if he doesn't come down with that touchdown catch. So for my too little credit, I'm going to go with Michael Pittman Jr. just because there aren't great options here as I'm looking through this. I don't really want to go on the defensive side of the ball. We've kind of touched the main characters, but to me, Pittman on a day when basically nobody could produce through the air to the point where Drew Ogletree was their second leading receiver on one catch for 22 yards. Michael Pittman Jr. did have 5 catches for 42 yards on 7 targets, also forced a couple of pass interference penalties. He basically won the route on an underthrown ball from Anthony Richardson that got that classic underthrown deep ball pass interference, but that's he forced that situation by leverage. The one on the final drive was, that was the biggest play they got on that drive outside. Obviously, the 4th downs were huge as far as making up the yardage. Michael Pittman Jr. did it, and I just think for the few moments where he could, that he caught the ball, what little was there. He had a nice screen ball that there was nothing there, and he made something out of it. And so, in another day where he kind of gutted it out, he made it to this level. We wanted to find some way to get to the bye week with that back injury so he could get a little bit of time off. He's made it. He missed one game in that span. It obviously has not all been perfect. Not all the games have been super well played from his end, but I do think he started to bring a little bit more these past couple weeks when they had to have a little bit more. And today, not much out there for Anthony Richardson to work with when the tight ends are what they are. No Josh Downs. Alec Pierce wasn't all that healthy. So Pittman had to find a way to do a couple things today, and I think he did just enough to help them get through this.
Yeah, they needed some plays from wide receivers today. That brings us to the last part. This is where we always end. One to throw away and one to go on. One to throw. We always start with one to throw away for obvious reasons. We want you to finish with the one to go on. One to throw away for me is the Colts defensive line isn't going to play this bad every week. They'll find a way to come back. I mean, yes, teams can keep trying to get the ball out of the quarterback's hand fast, but like if you look at some of the guys they have coming up, Drake May or not Drake May, Bo Nix is the 6th slowest in terms of getting the ball out of his hands. He runs around back there a lot. Like that's going to give them some chances. CJ Stroud does the same. I have no idea who the Giants quarterback is, and after what happened with Jacksonville today, I don't know who Jacksonville is going to be. But I think the defensive line finds a way to make more plays down the stretch.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think today was really just culmination of probably overlooked the opponent a little bit, and it's that last game before the latest bye week in the NFL. They didn't have it as much as they normally have it, but I don't think they'll come back from the bye week and they'll be a little bit more charged up, a little fresher, and you'll see you'll see them get back to what they were before. So I like that one. My one to throw away is my one is for Shane Steichen to throw away the plays he's running for tight ends. It's not working. They decided to ramp it up this week. It did not go well. And credit to Mo Alley Cox. That was a really nice play. That 1 4th down play. And so, but again, that wasn't one of the designs. Like you said, that was an accidental play where like a savvy veteran adjusted in a scramble route. But the ones they've actually designed for tight ends, really didn't happen. Will Mallory did have a nice catch for 7 yards on that final drive, but they're just not going to get a lot of bang for the buck with these skill sets. They just have plateaued. I don't think, I think it's a lot of what like the opposing defenses are going to look at this offense and think, look, you've got 3 super talented wide receivers. When they're healthy, you've got one of the best backfields, most talented backfields we've ever seen. You've got an offensive line that, when it could get some guys out there, at least the ones they had today, can be pretty effective and can be a strength. They want you to go to the tight ends. That is the thing they are not scared of. So I think it's time to, they had their one game where they gave them a chance. They tried to lean on them with the wide receivers being banged up. Didn't amount to much. So I think that's one to throw away, is the idea that they're going to have a big role. I think you got to just survive them at this point. It's a real weakness on this roster right now.
Just to underscore my point on the defensive line, Drake May got the ball out of his hands in 2.41 seconds, second fastest of any quarterback in the league this week. So I would say Gus Bradley should probably spend his bye week trying to figure out how to make quarterbacks hold the ball. That's maybe my one tip to go on for Gus Bradley.
I would advise that it's probably something to do with the middle of the field, but
one to go on for me. The middle of the field has issues, and it still will. Especially the short. My assumption is that a lot of it's linebackers. Nick Cross also did not have a very good game today. But yeah, the Colts cannot figure this out. They can't figure out tight ends. We're too far into the season to see it happening now. Even with the bye week, it just seems like that's going to be a weakness for them the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, these are veterans too, that it's not like they're not aware of how teams are going at them. They're not really learning these techniques at this point. It's just a skill set flaw, I think, for both of them at the moment. Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, and kind of those other linebackers they use, depth guys too. That's not their skill set without Jalen Carlies out there. So until they get Carlies back, they don't have a great option to compensate for that. So my one to go on is going to be that I think this backfield is the identity of the Colts offense. At long last, they're going to ride these guys as long as they're out there, and that's not a given, just the nature of injuries for guys who run the ball and for both of those players, Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. But they got to the bye week. Those guys are healthy. They just won them a game. They're the best part of this team right now is the combination of those two. Shane Steichen's showing he can get over some of the fears I think he was living in with Anthony Richardson's health early in the season. He's seeing it pay off a little bit here. When he got to the level where he was willing to not only start a game with these guys as a big part of the game script, but to make that the do or die play of the season, and then it worked. I think this is a turning point for him, for them. All season we've talked about, like, what is the identity of this team? What do they lean on? What are they good at? What are they consistent at? It's been a weird journey to here, but from this point forward, I think we're going to consistently talk about, for as long as they're out there, those two guys in the backfield, that's going to be the strength and the identity of this team. And if they end up in the playoffs, I think we're going to come right back to this and say, at some point in the year, they figured it out on offense through those guys, and that's why that's how they got the season back on track.
Yeah, that's it for the Colts Cover-2 podcast. Nate has gotten like 3 hours of sleep in the last 48 hours. So we're going to let him go to bed. I don't know if we'll have a podcast this week on the bye.
Yeah. We'll maybe take a little break, a little time off, and then.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that we might wait until we come back. We'll see what happens. Until then, enjoy your bye week. Do something with the kids for Christmas. For the Colts Cover-2 podcast, I am Joel A. Erickson. This is Nate Atkins. Have a great bye week, and we come back ready for a big game against Denver the week after that.